Welcome to the Novaworks Learning Center. In this video, we will demonstrate how to use the XDX Prospectus Wizard to tag documents using the risk-return taxonomy. The Prospectus Wizard analyzes the contents of the document and applies XDX tagging to the document, so you can create an inline XBRL report. The Prospectus Wizard for XDX is very similar to the wizard for XBRL, so if you've used that wizard before, this should be a familiar process. If you haven't used the wizard before or are new to XBRL and inline XBRL, the wizard is a very straightforward tool that will do the majority of the heavy lifting for us. The Prospectus Wizard works by analyzing the individual HTML blocks within the document and using keywords to identify each block's contents. The blocks that the wizard will tag are HTML paragraph blocks, or P tags, and HTML table blocks, or table tags. This means if the document has fact data for different elements in the same block, you won't be able to tag both facts individually. An example that could cause this problem would be if the document contained a heading for a table and the body for the table in the same tag. In that case, the fact data for the caption element and the fact data for the table element would be in the same HTML block. Before using the Prospectus Wizard, review your document for items like this to correct them in advance. Let's go to my document. What I'm going to do is look through my document for data that I'm going to tag so I can identify any problem areas like tables that contain facts for more than one element. Here's where the summary information starts. I already see a table heading that is included inside the table tag for the table. I want to split that out. Place the cursor inside the table. We need the cursor at the point where the table will be split, so place it in the first cell of the second row. This way we can split the table between the caption and the heading. Click on the Table ribbon. Then click Split Table. You can insert an empty paragraph if you want or not. Since there is no space between the caption and the heading row in the original document, I'm going to uncheck this option. Click OK to split the table. Now the formatting doesn't look right. This is because the caption row has a column span in it. Let's fix that span. Click inside the caption table. Click on the arrow beneath the Table Properties button to open the Properties menu. Then choose Cell Properties. Set the column span to Default. Click OK. Now we have two tables that look the same as the original single table. Let's move on and correct any other issues. Right here we can see another problem with this table. The annual fund operating expenses information is inside the same table tag. We're going to have to split the table again. Place the cursor before the operating expense caption. Click Split Table. Click OK. And then we need to split the table again to separate the body of the table from the caption. Place the cursor right before Management Fees. Click Split Table. Uncheck the option for the empty paragraph, and click OK. Finally, remove the span on the caption table. Click on the caption table. Open the cell properties. I can also do this by clicking on the span in the management view. Set the column span to default. And click OK. Let's scroll through the rest of the summary. Again, we are looking for items that are contained in the same HTML paragraph or table, but are two separate facts. A closer look at the expense example table reveals that it is a combination of with and without redemption facts. Since this table is more complex to correct than the others, we will come back to it later in the tagging process. Everything else looks good. Okay, we've fixed any formatting that could cause problems with our tagging, and we've already used the XDX Setup Wizard to add the taxonomy to the document and create extension elements for one series and 4 classes that are contained in this report. Before you use the Prospectus Wizard, make sure that you have created the series and class elements for the document You won't be able to tag the document without these elements. To start the Prospectus Wizard, click on the Prospectus Wizard button in the XDX Report ribbon. The first screen of the wizard appears. This screen sets where each summary in the prospectus begins. This portion of the dialog contains a list of all the HTML blocks in the document. If you click on one, you'll see that the edit window in the background will move to the location of the block in the document. The software also highlights the blocks so you can clearly see what it contains. The wizard also analyzes the document contents and determines the blocks that could be the beginning of the summary information. Let's click on one. I'm going to move the wizard so you can see the document behind it a little better. So this block is the summary heading in the document. The wizard looks for headings like these to determine what blocks are likely to be the beginning of a summary. It also looks for the investment objective heading, which is why, if we click on the second block it flagged as a possible summary, you'll see it's the investment objective heading. It's possible that the wizard won't find the beginning of a summary if you have unusual headings. If that's the case, you can click through the list until you find the block you want to use as the beginning of the summary. So locate the beginning of the summary information. If your document has more than one summary in it, find the first summary. Click on it to select it. Then set the block as the start of the summary by clicking the Start of Summary radio button. This will activate the summary and organization fields. Choose the series for the summary from the Summary drop-down list. If you have other components that you're using to organize the XBRL data, set the organizational element in the Organization field. Our sample document is very simple. It has only one summary in it, and it also has no organizational components. We'll cover prospectus organization in a later tutorial. Click on the Apply button to apply the series to the beginning of the summary. You'll see the block change from Start of Summary to the series element, which indicates that it will be tagged with that series. If you had additional summaries, you could scroll through the list and tag the rest using the same process. Click the Next button to continue the wizard. Now we can set the elements for each fact. Again, we will see a list of HTML blocks that are contained within the summary. As with the previous screen, clicking on one of these items will navigate the edit window to its location and highlight it. The wizard has set most of the elements for us, so let's click on the first marked block and see what it did. This item is marked with the objective heading element, and we can see in the document that the wizard marked the correct heading. The next item marked was the objective primary text block element, and we can see that it is also correctly marked. We can walk through the document by clicking on each item for review. If we get to an item and we don't agree with how the wizard tagged it, we can use the tools below the list to adjust it. Let's click on this block, which the wizard interpreted as Shareholder Fees Caption. It is possible here that we would prefer the following block to be the fact data for the shareholders' fees caption. So let's set this one as an unmarked block so we can tag the next block as the caption. Let's see what happens. Click the Not Marked radio button. Then click Apply. We can see that the wizard removed the tagging from that block. However, now the wizard thinks we want to include it as part of the previous tag. We don't want that either, so instead of using the Not Marked option, let's use the Exclude Block option. Click Exclude Block, and click Apply. Now that block won't be included in any fact data. Let's fix the next block, which is tagged with the shareholders' fee table text block. When we click on it, we see that this is the caption we split from the table. Set the element to Shareholders' Fees Caption by clicking on the element drop-down. Choose Shareholder Fees Caption from the list. Click Apply. Now click on the next block, which is the table containing the fee data. Click Mark with Element, and set the element to Shareholders' Fees Table text block. Click Apply. In IFRS or US GAAP filings, the table elements are used to tag the content of the table in HTML. This is not the case in risk return. However, it is important to mark the tables with the correct element in the wizard, as it will set the correct XBRL presentation name for the table. Continue reviewing each item and setting or adjusting the elements as needed. Our next item is the operating expenses caption, so we want to mark that with an element and choose the appropriate element. Click Apply, and repeat for the next item, which is the Annual Fund Operating Expenses table text block. The next item is the Expense Footnotes text block. And when we set this one, we can see that it includes the next block as part of the fact. In this case, we want it to be included because it's part of our fact data, so we can move on to the next item. So we'll just walk down the document and make the changes as needed. Depending on how our prospectus is formatted, you may need to make one or two changes to the wizard's choices. Other documents, like this one, that use tables for lists, may need more adjustments. The element drop-down list has all the elements in the order that they appear in a standard risk returns presentation, so you can easily locate the items based on the order that they will appear in the document. You can also open the library to review information about the elements by clicking on the Library button here. You can use the arrow keys in this dialog to quickly navigate the document. Here is the expense example table that I mentioned earlier. You can see that each class is different. Class A and Class L have one fact for with or without redemption. Class B and Class Y have facts for both no redemption and with redemption at the end of the period. There's no risk return element for a table like this, so what I plan to do is mark it with one of the expense example elements, just so the software knows that this is the expense example table. I'm going to have to come back to this table later in another tutorial to tag the contents. The last thing you need to do is to mark where the end of the XBRL data is, so when you get to the last block of that summary information, select it. The last thing you need to do is mark where the end of the XBRL data is. The mark at the end of the summary needs to be on the first block that occurs after the summary information that does not contain any fact data. The XDX end engram is not inclusive of the block it is on. That means that, if you place it on a paragraph, the data in that paragraph will not be marked for inclusion in the inline XBRL data. So choose the first block that occurs after the end of your summary. For my example, the first block is a page break. Page breaks are automatically excluded from any inline XBRL facts by the software, so I'll place my ending engram on the first block after it. Select the block, and then click End of Content. Click Apply. Click Finish. And the wizard has added the XDX tagging for us. You can see that it also tagged some of the table elements but left us to determine what context to add to each column. We'll talk about tagging the contents of the table and wrap up the rest of this document in the next tutorial. And that concludes this tutorial on the Prospectus Wizard. Thanks for watching.